So we grew these amazing, these beautiful red, purple, whatever you want to call them, cabbages this summer. And I think we get like 12 of them and then maybe like 5 green ones. And we, kind of ate our way through the garden. But at the end of the summer, when it was time to harvest these guys, before the snow came, before it got too cold for them to be out there, I think we still had like 8 of them. And I made some kraut with one of them. And now I've still got like 5 or 6 left. We're just kind of like putting cabbage and lots of different things. But I don't feel like they're going to make it through the winter keeping them like in the garage because it's cold down there. It's 23 degrees today, so the garage is probably in like the 30s, 40s. It's like refrigeration, right? But they're the couple of them are getting a little wilty, and I know you peel the leaves off and it's still good inside. But I'm going to make a batch of sauerkraut, purple sauerkraut. It ends up looking really pretty when it's done. So real easy: cabbage, salt, and maybe like a little saltwater brine if we need it. So I'm gonna make like a 1,000-gram batch of cabbage. So I'm gonna cut up 1,000 grams of cabbage, and it should fit real nice in a half-gallon mason jar. So to slice it, I am not gonna core it out, but I peeled off like the ugly outer leaves, because if I slice it this way and I leave the core intact, so boom, there's the core, right? And then if I take some of these middle pieces and I cut them in half, this core is going to hold my leaves together. I'll show you. So I'm slicing it, pretty thin, maybe, 1/8 of an inch at the most, so I can pack it all in the jar easily. So like there's what's left of my core. Dog will eat it, chickens will eat it, whatever. You can eat it if you cut it up real fine, or you can cook it. But here's, let's see, how skinny is it? Let's see, can I get a good piece for a demo? Yeah, like it's like about that wide, 1/8 of an inch or so. And I'm gonna add this into a bowl and then get my 1,000 grams, and I'll catch you up on where we go from there. Because basically it's adding salt and beating it up to release the moisture. All right, so cabbage is on a scale. There is exactly 955 grams of cabbage in this bowl. And it's all cut pretty uniform. And I'm gonna add salt to it and we're gonna beat it up. So whatever amount of cabbage you have, you're gonna add like 2 to 3% of its weight in salt. So if I have 955 grams of cabbage, I'm gonna add, more or less 18 grams of salt. So put it on the scale. Zero it out. And kosher salt's good here. It's clean, no impurities like extra minerals or no anti-caking agents like some kind of table salt. We have 15. Come on. And sometimes tap the bowl, make sure it's registering everything I'm putting in here. 18. 18 and a half. All right. So you can use your hands to do this, and if it were green cabbage, your hands wouldn't turn purple. But it's red cabbage, so your hands will turn purple. So I'm just gonna take a spoon, and I'm just gonna mix the salt in here. Yeah, I guess you could use, you could rubber glove it, and then you can start like squeezing it and mashing it. But if you use the back of a spoon, you can beat it up enough. So we're really looking to mix this for a good 5 minutes or so until it starts to weep a little bit. And you start to see that there's liquid coming out of the cabbage juice. And the coarseness of the kosher salt also helps to kind of agitate the cell structure of the cabbage and release some of that liquid. And salt is hygroscopic, means it draws out liquid. So we're just encouraging that process to happen by beating it up a little bit. So I'm going to beat this up for 5 minutes. I don't need to talk to you the whole time because that's boring, right? So I'll beat it up for 5 or 7 minutes or so, and you can see where I'm starting. And it's pretty dry. Like you can see, it's already starting to like weep just a tiny bit. Like just like a little bit of liquid coming out of the cabbage, but it's dry. It looks like a bowl of cabbage still. So I'll beat this up, and then I'll show you what I got, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so it's been 5 minutes, and it's been kind of like stir, with the front spoon, smash, smash down, and turn with the back of the spoon. You know, just kind of moving it all around, right? So we got 5 or 6 minutes of just kind of beating this up. And compared to where I started, like you can see, like the color is kind of bleeding into the white. Maybe it's kind of hard to see on camera, but like the white is not so white anymore. And it looks like, in terms of moisture right now, it looks like it could have been washed and drained. Like it looks, you know, kind of wet. So from here, easy part. We're gonna cover it with, you know, plastic wrap or lid if you got a lid for your bowl. Now we're set it aside. And then 45 minutes later, we're gonna come back and we're gonna agitate it a little bit more, and then we're gonna pack it into the jar. So, just in case we don't have enough liquid that comes out of the cabbage to, you know, have its own brine, we're gonna make a little saltwater brine. And with red cabbage, I'll wash off my spoon. With red cabbage, there's a lower moisture content than with green cabbage. So it's really common to use the brine. Not a big deal, you're not doing anything wrong, you're not cheating. Same if I were doing, you know, pick anything else. Sometimes you just need a little bit extra liquid. So I have in this little bowl a cup of water, which is about 235 grams of water. If you want to make this really repeatable, you'd measure everything, just go with grams. So I've got 235 grams of water, and then which is a cup, and then I have a teaspoon of kosher salt, which is about 4 grams. And so if you think of the percentages here, it's like 2%. My salt is 2% of the weight of my water. And, you know, depending on what salt you use, like if you use like a finer ground kosher salt or something like that, your weight might change. Or your volume might change in a teaspoon. So weighing it can be more repeatable than measuring the volume. Anyway, so I'm just gonna, this is simple. So I've got filtered water, because that's what we use, and salt. Stir it till it dissolves, and we're gonna set this aside so when we pack our cabbage in our mason jar, if there's not enough liquid to submerge the cabbage, we have this simple, like just saltwater brine to make up the liquid that we might be missing. So I'll see you in 45 minutes, and we'll pack our cabbage, the beginning of our kraut, into our mason jar. Okay, it's 45 minutes later. I actually set a timer to keep it honest, so let's see. All right, so I haven't stirred it yet. So you can see it's, you know, it's kind of squished down. You know, it looks like it's, you know, settled in a little bit. It looks a little bit soggy. Let's see, do I have any liquid in here? Not really, but you know, if I stir it up, God, it's hard to see in camera, but you can see it's shiny. Yep, it's wet. And I'm just gonna beat it up a little bit before I start stuffing it into my container. And, you know, alternatively, if you have a lot of cabbage and you wanted to make a ton of kraut, you could do a 5-gallon bucket, and then you just have to, you know, have a lot of cabbage to beat up inside the 5-gallon bucket. But we're just making a small batch here. I don't know what I would do with a 5-gallon bucket of kraut. It's too much. Too much for me. So it feels a little, you know, a little bit softer. I mean, it's not arugula, right? We're not gonna make it into absolute mush today. And that's, you know, it's still gonna have crunch eventually when it's done. So, you know, all the salt, like before I put the plastic wrap on, like after that first, you know, kind of maceration, beating it up, was all dissolved. We had nice liquid, and now it just feels a little bit less crunchy. Maybe it's got like a little bit more color, purple color into the whites of the cabbage. So I know for sure I'm definitely going to use my brine. It's just, I don't think this cabbage has enough moisture content to make it happen. So I'm going to load this up. I'm probably going to spill some of it. If you have a mason jar funnel, go ahead and use it. And I'm going to get, you know, some of this in there, and then I'll pack it down with like a wooden spoon or spatula or something. Actually, a ladle will fit in here nice. Probably use a ladle. see if I judged it right. 950 grams. Looks like it's going to fit in here real nice. And I'd rather have it be like, I'd rather have more headspace, more like of a gap at the top, and then have it like so full that I got to worry about, you know, liquid exploding out of it as it ferments. All right. Not too bad. Didn't miss too much. All right, so I have my brine that I set aside from before. Let's see, I'm making a pretty big batch here with my half-gallon jar. So I might actually need more than the 1 cup of brine that I have. Actually, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna need to make a little more brine real quick here. But let's see what I get. I'm gonna grab a ladle just to press it down. And see what we've got for actual, like, is there any liquid in here? How much moisture is in here? Is it packed in? Oh yeah, I could have gotten more than 950 grams in here, huh? I know 700 grams makes a mason jar way too full, like a quart size guy. So I was thinking that I wanted to leave more space than having like an overfilled quart guy. All right, here we go. My salt's all dissolved. Let some of the air come out of it. Oh yeah. Let's see. It's packed in pretty good, but when I press down on it, I want my cabbage to be covered in, you know, liquid. You can kind of see it there. It's not quite making it to the top. So I'm gonna mix up a little bit more salty water. I'll be right back. Okay, so I made more salt water. Easy, right? 4 grams of salt, 235 grams of water. Mix it together, dissolve the salt. Okay, so here we go. Let's add some more brine. Cool, so I like that. Just like enough of a layer to cover it when it's packed down. So here's the thing. We want all of our cabbage to stay submerged. I'm just gonna wiggle it around, make sure I don't have any air pockets trapped in there. You know, it's packed in pretty tight. So we want our cabbage to stay submerged. So a lot of people will add a weight to it, and like maybe like a whole cabbage leaf on top of the cabbage to, you know, press it into the brine, because if any cabbage is sticking up above the brine, and it's pretty likely it's going to get moldy, and we want to try and avoid that. Most of the time it won't be the end of the world, but we'll give it a little more help. Won't be the end of the world, and you can kind of like pick it off and it'll be fine. I tend to not just like put it in the pantry and forget about it. I'll actually take a look at this every day and, you know, make sure that everything is submerged and like give it a little help if it needs it. Yeah, so I like this. And, you know, some liquid's going to come out of the cabbage as we go, because there's still moisture in there. It's not like we beat up all the liquid out of the cabbage. So that's it. So we're going to go for 5 days of it hanging out just like this. And you don't want to leave it in the sun, but if your kitchen's like, you know, 65, 70 degrees-ish, it could be a good place to leave it so you can keep an eye on it, just see what it's up to. This mason jar has a real lid to it. So it doesn't have the 2-piece lid that has the lid and then the ring. I would prefer that, because then it would make it so I could put it on loosely and air could escape. The little, you know, carbon dioxide that's produced by the fermentation would release itself from the jar. So I'm gonna put this on just kind of loose. Loose? Yeah, loose. So, any gases that are building up can escape and not create like a whole bunch of pressure, and, I don't have to worry about the thing exploding or whatever. So I'm gonna leave this as it is. I'm gonna put it on the counter for about 5 days, and then I'll give it a taste. How's it taste after 5 days? I know it's not gonna be ready. I know usually I'll go like about 10 days, usually about how sour we like it before we put it in the fridge. And once it's in the fridge, yes, it's gonna keep fermenting just much slower, so it will have flavor development in the refrigerator. You could go much longer. It really depends on your preference. And I kept this really simple, right? So we get salt and cabbage and water. That's it. We could add caraway seeds. We could add a jalapeno. We could add some smashed cloves of garlic, or whatever you want. You can make this your own, really. We could have some grated apple in here, or some beets. Kind of whatever. But if you start simple and figure out how it works and how it behaves, and build a baseline, then you can start experimenting and be pretty successful right away. So let's see. Let's check in. We'll check in. Tomorrow. Tomorrow, take a look at it, see where it's sitting in terms of liquid level. I've got I don't have enough brine worth saving. I guess I used approximately my first amount plus maybe 3/4 of what I just did. So, if that gives you a baseline or an idea of how much brine you might need. But your cabbage might be super wet and it might release a lot of liquid, and you might not need as much brine. So it all depends. These are all guidelines. So there you go. All right, so this is just 24 hours later, and you can see it looks about the same as yesterday, right? The white's still pretty white, and it hasn't released a ton more liquid. I opened this up. I used just a spoon to kind of press it down and make sure that it was submerged. I probably did that in the morning and then again in the evening, just to make sure that nothing is exposed to air above the liquid. So this is 24 hours later. Here we are 5 days later, and you can see like a pretty solid difference in color here. And I think if you look at you scroll back to the picture before, it's actually expanded quite a bit in the jar. Like it's filling the jar just a little bit more, just a touch less headspace in there. So not as only has it released liquid, but it's also like kind of floating up in that liquid too. So same thing, you kind of make sure you press it down, it's submerged. Do it in the morning, do it in the evening. Or just spend the money and buy a weight, and they make special weights to weight down fermenting cabbage and other like pickles and different things. Okay, so this is at 10 days, and you can see the color difference from the last little 5-day picture. It's a little darker, and as you go through this process of it sitting on your counter and like you're pressing down on it, you'll see like it'll release bubbles. It'll even if you're watching it for a period of time, you can see little bubbles coming to the surface. So it will have some activity. So this is at 10 days, and it's going to go into the refrigerator from here because once you get to 5 days, you taste it, and then you can taste it on day 6 and on day 7, on day 8, day 9, day 10. And just from there, just decide, is it sour enough? Do I like it? Do I want to kind of stop it here by refrigerating it and let it go slow in the fridge? Or do you want to just leave it on the counter or the pantry or a cool, dark place and let it do its thing? That's your call. But this is 10 days. I like how it tastes, so it's going in the fridge. All right, so this has been in the fridge so we got 10 days that it was on the counter, and I liked how it tasted, but that didn't mean that it was necessarily ready to go. So this is after another just 2 weeks hanging in the fridge, and I split it down. I put it in a smaller quart jar just because I don't want a half-gallon jar taking up my whole refrigerator. It's valuable real estate in there. So I put it in a couple smaller jars. This one and another quart, and the other quart's like half full. But anyway, so first 10 days, cool, you develop your flavor or whatever, or 11 days or 12 days or however far you want to go, and then get it in the fridge, let it go for another couple weeks. You can taste it, once a week and just kind of see how it's moving and how it's changing, and then decide like, cool, let's start adding it into a salad or onto a sandwich or, however you want to use it, into like a bowl of veggies and rice and, whatever. So yeah, this is 10 days plus another 2 weeks, and that's what it looks like.